We're doing a project to look at what promising practices are out there to support students who are parents. So we've been doing research on the student-parent population, and one of the first things we found is that a surprisingly large number of community college students are parents, about 29%. And that led us to want to explore what kinds of supports are available in the community college system that are directed toward parents and their children. And we looked recently at the availability of childcare on community college campuses. And it was something that people really hadn't looked at before in a global way. And so we used the higher education data sets to find that less than half of community college campuses have childcare centers. And actually four-year colleges and universities are much more likely to have childcare centers on their campuses than our community colleges. And the availability of childcare has actually been declining in recent years, which in a way isn't that surprising given the budgetary constraints that so many institutions are feeling. But if we want to increase the numbers of graduates and a large proportion of the population that we're reaching out to, our parents, and many are also struggling to balance work as well as their family responsibilities, I think we need to rethink institutions of higher learning to be two-generation environments where people with kids can feel comfortable and feel like there are some supports there for them. So, and there are other kinds of supports that have been helpful to students who are parents in campuses that have created programs like specialized counseling or opportunities for parents to get together with other parents and figure out strategies for finding supports, like finding cash assistance or housing assistance, transportation. Some of these parents are going to be welfare recipients, and they have fairly complicated work requirements that they have to adhere to. And in some places there have been support groups formed where the welfare recipients help one another, I mean, even go to court with one another to try to challenge their sanctions of benefits and things like that. So we feel like it's been an issue that hasn't received enough attention in terms of thinking about how to increase graduation rates. So we're really interested in how we can look at a number of different efforts that are seeking to improve completion and kind of elevate the investments in those supports that would particularly help parents.
In your research around what students with children are needing, are there also it sounds like there's an effort for to cultivate some personal responsibility around finding peers, finding other students with children, and supporting each other, having having some kind of maybe a learning community or support community. What interventions or new programs are working that are initiated by the colleges that you're seeing are particularly effective?
Well, they're kind of student-led initiatives that we've seen. For example, at Berkeley, which is a four-year college, but that's where we're seeing some of the great models that might be applied to the community college setting. But at Berkeley, they have a student-parent student group that's very active both in advocacy and in the broader sense, in the policy world, and also within the university itself to try to bring more supports to that population. There are also some nonprofits out in the community, like there's a group called Lifetime that's in Oakland that is made up of former welfare recipients or current welfare recipients who work together on helping one another find childcare, helping one another navigate the welfare system, and then advocating for things like laws that allow welfare recipients to count study as work toward the TANF requirement, or to count study time as work. And then in terms of college and institutionally initiated efforts, there several colleges and universities have actually created classes that are targeted towards student parents that help them think about benefit access, that encourage them to kind of get together and problem solve around balancing. And the fact that there's a class and that they're getting credit for that time is really encouraging for people who have so little time. So I think it can be difficult to ask people to just sort of come together and hang out, you know, when they're working so much and studying so much. But having childcare available is essential when you do things like that. But we're actually there's a conference and there's a network of student parent support programs, and they meet once a year at Ohio State University. We're going out there next week and surveying all the programs to get a sense of who's doing what are the interesting practices that we could look into more, and that might be good candidates for expanding or testing or scaling up, encouraging others to try.
It sounds like a bottom-up movement, though, that when something's working on the ground, it hasn't yet become an institutional policy, or it isn't as widely known that this is a big issue on campus. Is part of your work the influence in impacting policy?
Yeah, that's a piece of it. Like when we released our childcare report, several of our presenters and people who came to the release decided to form a childcare policy working group, and we've been meeting monthly, and we're starting a series of meetings with officials in the Obama administration to look at what are the points of leverage where we could make it easier for campuses to fund childcare, because I think there are some sort of perverse incentives in some of the existing funding streams that don't allow existing resources to be used for that kind of support, and that might be sort of easy fixes that wouldn't even require increased funding at this point in time, just a different sort of efficiency in the funding. So we're beginning a series of meetings there, and then we're talking about trying to create a special fellowship where we could encourage a young leader to kind of take on these issues and champion them from a policy perspective, because the one federal program that exists, the C Campus program that funds campus childcare, was started by someone on our working group, and he feels that he knows how to get it done, and he'd like to now, he's retired now, would like to help a young person kind of rise up and get some more things done in that regard. So it's kind of exciting to think about sort of seeding a new generation of champions.
Great to hear about growing champions, and we've talked about students with children. Are we talking mostly about women when we say students with children?
Yeah, the majority of, well, there tend to be more women on campuses anyway, and definitely if you're looking at those who are single parents, far more are women than men. So yeah, and even when, and we had some interesting data on time use that we analyzed for our childcare report. And if you compare single dads and single moms spend a lot more time in caregiving responsibilities than single dads do. I don't know exactly how they work that, but in general, you know, women tend to take on more caregiving roles even within married couple families, and I think that's something that we need to acknowledge to a much greater degree. Some of the other issues that we're looking at is are how to improve the quality of the degrees that women are getting, because we still see very strong patterns of sex segregation in the kinds of majors that men and women are pursuing, with women getting degrees in the lower paying occupations. And if women are more likely to have childcare responsibilities and are more likely to be parents on campus, they're really going to need, even more than men, a decent paying job. So one of the papers we're coming out with is looking at efforts in community colleges to encourage women to go into the STEM fields, science, technology, engineering, and math, and sort of kind of break those traditionally gendered patterns.
Great. I was going to ask you about the pursuit and and college path. In your research, have you seen that there's this population in community colleges maybe looking for certification or a faster way to a job, or is it more a traditional 4-year path?
Well, I mean, I think that when we haven't really studied it, but what we've heard anecdotally is that when people have kids, they may be in and out of college a little bit more. And if they're struggling to get childcare subsidies and gaining them, losing them, gaining and losing housing, cash assistance benefits, I think that can create unnecessary stops and starts in the college path. And I think it's important when thinking about the student parent to allow for some flexibility in the timing. That while everyone wants to be able to get a degree as fast as possible because that's going to lead to higher earnings, and the quicker you can see those coming in, the better. At the same time, I think we need to understand that there are going to be times in a parent's life when it's not possible to do the balancing act. So they may have more fits and starts than other students. And I think we just need to be conscious of that when creating incentive systems to speed the degrees along.
One thing we were talking about is that maybe an unforeseen or unpublicized benefit of being a student parent is that your children see you studying, and that you're a different kind of role model than maybe the parent that's just going to work. Have you looked at some of that?
Yeah, we've done some research on that, and that's absolutely right, that the children of adults who are in college start to value school more. They start to picture themselves getting a college degree in a way that they hadn't in the past. They feel proud of their parents. They see their parents getting involved in a broader community and having sort of more social capital, sort of a different set of networks. I think that the two-generation benefits are enormous, and there's been some quantitative research along those lines as well, that when a low-income person pursues post-secondary education, their child benefits during that process. It's not just that they're more educated, it's that they've gone through that learning together and kind of created a culture of learning within the family.
So thank you so much for spotlighting these issues and telling us about it. I really learned a lot.
Oh,
so
good.
Thank you.
Good. I'm glad. Thank
Great.
you for listening.
Great.